So my name is Amy Zulik, and I'm the Executive Director of Mental Health America of Oregon. And we, Mental Health America of Oregon, are super excited to be here and have all of you guys here with us today. Woo! Yeah. Peer Apocalypse sort of came about on a wing and a prayer, I guess. It started with a few people saying, wouldn't that be cool? And so we cobbled together some commitments from folks to send people, and didn't really have much funding for it. So the staff at MHAO did a whole lot, not a lot of hours. And we had the Mid-Valley Behavioral Care Network wonderfully offer us some in-kind donation of Patricia Ross's time, and also scholarships from folks. And so it's really exciting to see this manifest in this group of amazing people. We're really glad you're here. I want to take a quick second, and I hate when I do this, but I still do it at every event, to have the Mental Health America of Oregon staff stand. I know where you are, so you can't stand. So this is a group of people put a lot of work into this event, and I'm really grateful. And also wanted you guys to see who they are as you have questions or things like that. We're going to try and keep somebody camped out at the registration table for most of the day tomorrow and during the events on Wednesday morning as well, but just so you know who we are. I also wanted to thank the Oregon Consumer Survivor Coalition, who actually is providing. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that group in a minute as well. A little bit about our conference theme, as I'm sure you guys know, we're focused on leadership development and nonprofit organizational development. We're really hoping that this event provides us more opportunities to build the organizations we work with, build leadership in our community, and build connections with each other. We're standing on the shoulders of giants here in Oregon, and a lot of people here in this room have been doing this work for years, and so like looking out and seeing people who've hosted our statewide consumer events we've had in the past, and so it's so great to bring together. There's some younger folks here who are relatively new to this, and folks who've been doing this for 40 years, and everyone in between. So super glad to have you here. Big changes are coming, they're happening now, and so it's really imperative that we're connected and united and in conversation. As many of you know, there are large changes happening in the way our system here in Oregon approves peer support specialist trainings for the work that many of us do. There's a new role happening called a peer wellness specialist, and a new state structure that's going to be happening. And so it's just imperative that we're all connected and following this as it unfolds so that our voices can be heard. There's also a renewed, it's not renewed because there's been for many years, ever since we lost our funded Office of Consumer Affairs here in Oregon, people have been fighting to bring it back. And really excited to see what appears to be a renewed interest at the state level in funding an Office of Consumer Affairs. And so moving forward, we can all be voices for getting that funding, continue to ask, why are you not funding this? Why are you not funding services and peer delivery services and agencies? And where is our funded Office of Consumer Affairs? The other piece that's changing for our community is the Affordable Care Act coming here. And one thing we've talked about a lot at MHAO is that a lot of us, because of who we are and what we've been through, are connected to folks who might not be connected to the system in other ways. And that means that we're kind of an ideal, a lot of times, voice for if someone is uninsured or underinsured, being like, hey, this thing is happening and here's what it means. It's another big thing that's going to be happening for us, and I'm hoping something that's going to result in people here in Oregon being able to have medical care they don't have. That was my little bit of a spiel about some of the big things that are happening and why it's so important that we're here together. It's also great to be here with people who have this united vision of recovery, that recovery is real, and it isn't like, and I've heard, I stole this from someone, I can't quite remember who, but that it isn't just possible, but it's probable if we have the right support and the right things around us. We're also united in our belief in peer support, and particularly having one of those weeks where I don't know what I would do without the people in my world who've been through stuff like I've gone through. So I'm grateful to see all you peer supporters here together. So on that note, I'm going to switch to housekeeping before I introduce our amazing keynote. So I have some housekeeping things for you. Speaking of peer support, we are going to have peer support available to you 24 hours a day. As I said, we have our amazing representative from the now called Oregon Coalition for Recovery. We have a peer support phone that you can call anytime from now until Wednesday, and you will get a hold of one of the MHAO staff. I have that number here, but you guys probably don't all have pens in your hand, so maybe I'll find a way to stick it on the wall while Corbin is here. It's in the program. Sorry, I should have known. And also, the front desk has that number. So if you're having a rough time, it's at 2 in the morning or something, and you don't know where the number is, you can go to the front desk and they will give you the number or call, and so one of us folks will come and see how you are. I have a note on here to talk about the smoking area, but I just realized I didn't ask any of the smokers where it is. So,
right across the street from right across the way from the front doors.
Okay, so it's right across the street, right across the way from the front doors, out the front door. Okay, thanks. So we just wanted to ask people to be respectful of their property here and their rules around smoking, and if you could do that in the smoking area, that would be wonderful. A quick note for the folks who are here because of a scholarship from the BCN or through the Project Open with MHAO, is we kind of went out on a limb to stop them from making people have to do a personal deposit to register on your card. What that means is that if you charge anything to your room, it's going to get billed to us. So please don't do it. Because we will find you. No. but please, we are a small nonprofit. So we're just making that request. Please don't charge anything. We went and coaxed them into not doing that. So, and then let's see. A reminder that people who are staying in this hotel, there's breakfast available here in the morning. The raffle is going to be tomorrow evening during dinner, and then a request.
Whoa.
Something important is happening.
My bad stuff.
A request for folks who are vegetarian and vegan. We had a little bit of a mix-up with how many meals we needed. So please, before you leave, stop by the registration desk because we want to give them a better number for tomorrow to make sure that we don't have anybody having to wait longer to get their vegetarian or vegan meals. And then 2 more quick announcements. The Oregon Consumer Survivor Coalition, now called the Oregon Coalition for Recovery, which is our statewide coalition of peer-run organizations and groups, is looking for a volunteer, and it's actually a stipended position. It has a $150 stipend available for a 10-month period, 12 to 15 hours a month, and it's a really exciting opportunity to get immediately involved in some statewide work in Oregon. So we have materials at the registration desk. We have a number of, I'm on the board, we have a number of board members here, and so if people want to hear about what OCR now does, track us down to the registration desk and we'll point you to folks too. And then I also want to let you know that tomorrow, Tuesday, from 7:30 to 8:30 in the Lotus Room, there's going to be a focus group on social recovery. And Kathy, if it's okay, I'm just going to read this. It says, participants are sought for an hour-long focus group on the processes of social recovery. Participation will be a chance to express yourself, reflect on your journey, and contribute to the developing research base. So I wanted to let you guys know there's information about that at the registration desk as well.
Got this stuff.
And now I have the privilege and honor of introducing Corbett Moranica. I just realized I didn't bring my, oh no, wait, I have it. Okay, good. I don't want to just read this totally to you, but I'm going to read a little bit of it because it has a lot of really wonderful information about this wonderful person for you. So Corbett is the executive director of Dual Diagnosis Anonymous, which I'm sure many of you know of, and I know that a lot of people in this room have received a lot of support through and maybe owe their lives to. Corbett is dually diagnosed and in recovery and has 30 plus years of clinical experience in both mental health and substance abuse treatment delivery systems. He is currently the vice chairperson of the Oregon State Hospital Advisory Board and is the vice president of the board of directors of Mental Health America of Oregon, and has been a tremendous support to our organization over the years. He founded Dual Diagnosis Anonymous in 1996, which is a consumer-driven self-help support group for dually diagnosed individuals. It's based on the 12 steps, but it adds an additional 5 steps, which are in addition to the 12 steps of Dual Diagnosis Anonymous, and focus on folks who have both mental health challenges and substance abuse issues. DDA has grown exponentially over the years, and meetings are now held both nationally and internationally. And a lot of people here know who Corbett is because of his work, but also because of his tremendous love. He's a person who walks in a room and love and recovery seems to follow. Bear has been referring to him as the godfather of recovery in Oregon. And he will let you kiss his ring. So I'm proud to introduce our keynote speaker, Corbett Moranica.
So, have any of you ever been to church? Doyle, would you hook that projector up? I don't have any slides, but I just thought it'd be cool to have the light behind me. So I just have, the reason I said that, by the way, is, you know, I'm a Universal Life minister, and so I've had the privilege to do some, you know, services, and I get to be Reverend Corbett, which is really trippy. And so, so do you know, like, when the Reverend goes, "Peace be with you," and what do you say?
And also with you.
Yeah, okay, well, one time I was doing a thing as my minister, and I didn't think the mic was working, so I went, "I think there's something wrong with this mic," and the congregation went, "And also with you." So, there's something wrong with this mic. Anyhow, I'm just absolutely thrilled and honored to be here. I know many of you, and somehow I got a new phone. Well, not somehow I got a new phone. Somehow when I got my new phone, the messages and stuff disappeared. But I had this really cool message from Amy, Nicole, and Trish, several months ago. And it was like, you know, when I listened to my message, I got home and it was, "Hi Corbett, it's Amy and Nicole and Trish." It was like, you know, these 3 people with different voices on my phone. And they told me about this idea for Peerpocalypse and asked if I would consider being the keynote. And this is really a privilege and an honor for me. And I don't think I've ever had a suite that has 2 bathrooms in it before. And I'm using both of them, by the way, simply because I can. So I had a thought, and that's pretty scary, but when I get a thought, so in this bag, I was like thinking, like, this is Peerpocalypse, and it has something to do with the future, and something to do with the present, and something to do with the past. So I went to Fred Meyer's in Sandy. This isn't part of my real presentation, by the way. And I bought fortune cookies. So I'm going to send this around, and I want everybody to grab a fortune cookie. One of these fortune cookies has a prize in it, $500 a month for the rest of your life. So. Okay, I don't want to trip anybody up, but let me get my Abilify notepad out. hey, it was free, okay? So I did that one. I just don't want to forget anything because it's really cool to be here surrounded by loving peers. So I get an opportunity to tell my story. And everybody in this room has a story. And what a privilege for me to share mine with you this evening. My story, it's just kind of I mean, nothing can make me feel better than I do right here, right now. But it's the story of the throes and the bondage of addiction, the suffering with what I don't even know about the term mental illness anymore, but with my own struggles, and also the horrors of war and redemption. And this is part of that redemption right here, right now, in this room with my brothers and sisters. So I go back to, I guess the early 60s, when I was finding myself not fitting in high school. I'm pretty much older than most people I know. I'll be 67 in November. And it's pretty cool to be older than most people I know, because I can tell most people I know that there's so much to look forward to, and unless they're 68 years old, they really can't challenge me. And there are some people older than me, but not many. Yeah. Yay! And so, you know, my life was kind of on a downward spiral, and I was diagnosed with this really weird label called aphasia. And so, when I was a pre-adolescent, the term aphasia didn't mean much to me. And as a matter of fact, it wasn't until I got into recovery that I decided to see what it was that was tapped on me in junior high school and grade school. And literally the term aphasia means speechless. And so I think there's something about this, about how easy it is for people to get swallowed up in the system as a result of an inability to fit in or the lack of desire to fit in. My whole childhood was spent avoiding people. I have a little bit of a hearing problem, so I didn't get instructions real well. This problem was exacerbated in the war, of course, but so I always found myself separating from people. I guess they would call that, quote, social anxiety today. And as a result of not following through, I was diagnosed with this serious mental illness where I was a child that not only could not take instructions, but did not know how to process information, did not know how to follow through with anything. And so I sat in a special education learning class in the late 50s and early 60s. I actually did pretty well in that class, by the way, because it pretty much consisted of the instructor going to the blackboard or the chalkboard and pointing to the letters of the alphabet and having us phoneticize how these letters were used. For example, A, as in apple. A, and then we got to go A as in apple. A. I was really good with the B word, by the way. So it was B as in ball. So that was my class in late junior high and my first year in high school. Well, it wasn't working out really well. I ended up getting sent to continuation school, again, because I couldn't interact with people. And I found myself, I was so ignorant, and Lord knows I have a long ways to go, but a lot of our class at that time had kids in wheelchairs, had kids with cerebral palsy, there was just everybody was combined in this classroom. There was no distinction, and it was really weird. Special ed in the 50s and early 60s was really weird. So a lot of the people at Polytechnic Junior High School, the doors were open in our classroom, and I would usually be sitting in the classroom, and people would come by, you know how kids can be, and they would stand in the doorway, and they would make really mean and hurtful gestures, and they would speak in hurtful ways, making fun of us in the class, and like acting like they were disabled, and speaking that they were disabled or mentally retarded. And so it caused a lot of conflict with me, and I ended up, I'm not proud of my past, by the way, but I wouldn't change a thing because nothing can make me feel better than I do right here, right now, in this room with my brothers and sisters. And I may say that more than once. So I got into a lot of fights. So after getting kicked out of school, I ended up at juvenile hall. And my father only knew one way to deal with the boys. I'm one of 8 boys, and my father happened to be a boxing champion from New Jersey, a light heavyweight boxing champion, and he had really big hands. And I mean, I know my parents did their best, but basically, child abuse is child abuse, and when my dad would hit us on the side of the head, it was bigger than our head. We would go down, and I was not thrilled about pacing inside a little holding cell at juvenile hall waiting for Dad to come and pick me up. Well, lo and behold, divine intervention, a sergeant from the United States Marine Corps came into my little holding tank, and he was wearing a khaki uniform, and he was bigger than my dad. And in 1964, you didn't have to have a GED or a high school diploma to be in the service. But at 17, you did need your parents' permission. And the recruiter asked me if I would like him to speak to my dad, and I was like, oh, please, save my life. And it was kind of, some things just stay ingrained in your brain awareness, and what stayed ingrained in my brain is when they were opening the door to let my dad in, and the recruiter was in, and Dad, I'm moving around a lot. Dad came in the door, and I knew what he was going to do, but the Marine Corps recruiter got in front of him and said, Mr. Monica, I am not Monica Corbett, by the way, although I can be if you want me to be. So he stopped my dad, he said, Mr. Monica, I'd like to talk to you. And my dad was just like wanting to get by him. I mean, my dad died in October of 1978 of Alzheimer's, and there's been a lot of healing since that time. And the point he was making with my father was that we can make a man out of your son. He's going to end up in prison or dead. I was a juvenile delinquent. This goes back to before some of you were probably born, and the Marines made men out of people, and I begged my father. I did not get hit, by the way. I did not get hit. And between me and the Marine Corps recruiter, we convinced my dad to talk to my mom to give me permission to join the Marines, and I did in 1964 at 17 years old in September. And it's funny because the recruiter told my parents, your son's going to end up in prison or dead, and where did I end up? In the brig, which is prison for Marines. So, not a good day, did. One peer decided, oh no, that's something else. So I ended up in the brig. For me to look back at some of my life experiences without having a little bit of a sense of humor and the irony of it that brought me here tonight is just miraculous. I mean, the fact that I'm here tonight is just, the fact that every one of us is here tonight is miraculous. But going back to my story, we were gathered together by the brig commander who told us, this was 1965, that there was a conflict in China. That's what I remember, China or Southeast Asia, and that the people there were being overrun and they needed our help. So what does an 18-year-old kid know? All I knew is I hadn't done anything for anybody in my short lifespan of 18 years, and I remember thinking that I can finally do something to make my parents proud and to do something for other people, even at the risk of my life. And that seemed pretty noble to me. So I got out of the brig, I got in line at a phone booth, I called my mom and dad, I said, we're shipping out, I'm going to China. I thought I was going to China. Nobody mentioned the words Vietnam. I was going overseas, and I was not ready for what happened in Vietnam. I came home without my best friend, Bruce Stewart Lindsay, whose picture of his gravesite is on my Facebook, which I just found a couple of weeks ago. And, the horror of that experience had a profound effect on me. and I never ever thought I would get beyond it, but I'm going to tell you how I did momentarily. I didn't understand grieving. See, when you're one of 8 boys and you hold your mud and you don't cry and you're tough and you don't show your feelings, and to be depressed was weak and to have mood swings was weak and out of control. So I was driven to IV drug addiction, not understanding the desperation of seeking relief. I am proud to have honorably served 4 years in the Marine Corps, and I have an honorable discharge, and I'm proud to have served this country. I was also not prepared for what happened when I came home. I landed in San Diego in 1968, and it was at the height of the protest movement. And I got to tell you, even though I was overseas for over 3 years, it wasn't here. It wasn't in America. And all I could keep thinking about was when I was in Okinawa, me and some of my buddies were watching a little black and white screen TV and learned that Martin Luther King was assassinated in 1968. I was overseas when that happened. And Robert Kennedy was assassinated in 1968. I was overseas when that happened. But I could not wait to come home because my 11 brothers and sisters and my parents and one of my uncles from New Jersey all came to Palm Springs, California, where my parents were living, to welcome me home. Well, when I got out of that plane, and there were temporary fences along the airport, and people were screaming and yelling, and there were obscenities, and I really, again, what's a 21-year-old kid know? I wasn't prepared for that either. And I didn't know what I'd done wrong. Remember, my thought was to go over and do something for a change that I considered to be noble. My motivation, I had no understanding about the political atmosphere and who was pulling what strings. I just did my part to fight this war for what I thought was a good cause, which, as it turns out, maybe wasn't so much of a good cause. But I went to Long's drugstore. Again, this is embarrassing. I bought like 8 bottles of Robitussin D3, I think it was. At that time, you can buy cough syrup with codeine, but you had to sign for it. And all I did when I got out of the Marine Corps with my honorable discharge in hand was sat at Camp Pendleton and drank cough syrup. I was afraid to call my family. After a couple of weeks, I decided to call my sister Teresa, and I was afraid of what she might say. I didn't know if they still loved me, and my sister T called me Corb. And I said, T, it's Corb, and she just started crying. Where are you? And my family came to get me. I went home. I've got a great picture on Facebook of me and my dad on one side and my mom on the other side. I think it's the only picture I have as an adult with my parents. And I did my best to reconnect to society, but my IV drug addiction was no laughing matter. Whether it was heroin or cocaine or whatever, I was what they referred to in the 60s, and this is a kind of an ugly reference, as a hype. And there was no way to get relief, and every addict knows this. What we're seeking in our addiction is transcendence from suffering. We're seeking to become saints, and the problem is we're using a destructive means, and all recovery is hanging on to that deeply heartfelt, searing desire to transcend our suffering and redirecting it into recovery, and things like this happen. Things that are very humbling and things that are really quite an honor. So one thing led to another, and after a couple of really serious suicide attempts, it was impossible in my thinking to stay alive since Bruce didn't get to see his daughter. He had a little girl on the way to Vietnam and he never came home. And the survivor's guilt was pretty intense. It didn't make sense for me to be, we had plans when we got out of the Marine Corps together. It didn't make sense for me to stay alive. So after receiving the last rites, I was raised in the Catholic tradition. Any Catholics in here? You know what extreme unction is? I feel like George Carlin when I say that. Extreme unction. That's not George Carlin. He did a thing about pneumonia. He said, put on your galoshes, your mom would say, because if you go outside, you're going to get pneumonia. Anyhow, extreme unction is a pretty cool technique, by the way. You know, death is imminent, or you're dead, and the priest anoints your senses, and you get to go to heaven. Quite a system, I think. Maybe I'll get another shot at it. But anyhow, after a couple of really serious suicide attempts, and preparing for the third and final one, Mom came to visit me in 1970, and started crying. I told her to leave, one of my worst memories, but my mom died on June the 3rd, 2000, and I was clean, and we were like one. And she did leave, and 15 minutes later, my front door was kicked in. I was in a little duplex in Palm Springs, California. 4 of my brothers, a family doctor friend, my father, and the sheriffs decided to put me in a nut house against my will. It's called a 5150 in California. And in order to get me there, they shot me right through my trousers. They didn't even swab my butt. I could have gotten an infection, for God's sake. But anyhow, with cords. And I spent the next year and a half of my life in Riverside General Hospital and Patton State Hospital in San Bernardino, California. And it was really cool. And the coolest part was I got a job there. I mean, one day I was a patient at Patton State Hospital, and then the next day I wake up, I still wear my keys on my hip. I think I learned that as a staff member at the state hospital. And I got a job at Patton State Hospital. That was my first job. And everything was cool in the field of recovery, end of 1970, early 1971. I went to college. I'm proud to have earned a degree. Everything was really cool except for one thing. I allowed my false pride to swell my head. People looked up to me. I'd recovered from heroin addiction. I survived the war. I fought in Vietnam. And I took all of the praise and the admiration of my children and my brothers and sisters and allowed it to distort my thinking I was better than other people, thinking that I must be special because that's what I was hearing. And like I said, it's really embarrassing, but I've got nothing to hide. There can be, they say in recovery programs, we're only as sick as our secrets, and I don't want any secrets. And by the way, I don't want any anonymity either. If there is anything about my story that you think would serve anybody, any of our brothers and sisters, you're free to say anything you want about me. Just make it sound good. That's all I ask. You know, you can mention something about that picture that's on Apocalypse. You know. You know how many tries it took me to just get my hands on my legs? It was like, I threw myself out there. So, and I had this thing in my head. Any good addict can do this, by the way. And we know the story about how we can pick and choose what we think our drug of choice is. Like, for example, speed really messes with my brain, so I'll just smoke weed. I don't have a problem with weed, my problem is speed. Or, you know what, I'm not going to drink tequila anymore, I'll just drink wine or I'll just drink beer. Well, I did the ultimate denial. I decided that as long as I wasn't shooting heroin, I was clean. I mean, how convenient is that? So I was able to pretty much do anything I wanted as long as I wasn't doing heroin and tell people I was clean, and I'm not. Well, that just doesn't work, as you know. And so in 1982, I left my job as Shasta County's Drug and Alcohol Program Administrator, which is in Redding, California. And the lies and the deceit and the phoniness had taken its toll on me. And I moved to San Diego. I ended up getting involved in a 3-year run of IV methamphetamine, and I gotta tell you, if I didn't have some psychological issues before I got strung out on methamphetamine, has anybody else in here done speed? Don't tell me, yeah. Well, let me be the first to tell you that you have created a chemical imbalance in your brain. That's what, yeah.
Loud and proud.
That's one of the definitions of what people call mental illness, is having a chemical imbalance. Well, I was 39 years old in 1986, 28 years ago, and I know I'm looking at Mike because I know he's read The Dark Night of the Soul, and I was at the end of a 3-year IV speed run in a garage in San Bernardino, California, and I was right back at that place where I didn't deserve to live. It was very dark, and I had a little book called The Dark Night of the Soul, and there was something that attracted me to that book. It was written by a monk, a Carmelite monk from Spain, St. John of the Cross, and something about the title resonated with me. My darkness was a function of being bound in the throes of addiction and trapped within my own dark nature. His darkness was as a result of him denying all of his sensory experiences to know God, to know a higher power. That's what he did. So his darkness was, he wouldn't even salt or season his food because he didn't want his senses to be distracted from what he pursued more than anything. His whole life was spent in prayer and meditation and service and fasting and vigils, which is when you stay awake and you just keep your mind focused on your higher power. And so those two things for him were darkness. For me, it was my self-destruction and my inability to see beyond anything except the sickness in my brain, and it was sick as a result of the drugs. And so I came to this understanding in reading The Dark Night of the Soul, that his idea of whatever your higher power is, whether you have one or not, but in his case, his higher power, and his higher power happened to be Christ, by the way, and could not fully immerse itself in it. It was too big. Because it couldn't be known, his experience of darkness was actually a function of how close he was. I mean, think about it. The darker it got for him, the closer he was because it couldn't be known. And I started crying, and I have not used since I read that book, and I realized that this behavior, I was not evil, that's what I wanted. And I started working in the field of recovery with people that were considered dually diagnosed, and here we are today, 28 years clean, and the founder of a program that has been the greatest blessing of my life, which has spread. I've got some notes here, by the way. I'm almost done, though, just hanging there. So it reminds me that, and I'm speaking for myself because I've got this microphone, but I'm also speaking for each one in this room. One peer decided to make a difference in the life of another, and you are that tipping point. It's like when enough peers decide to help other peers, this is an apocalypse because we're in a new beginning of the value and the importance of us serving one another. Some of you know Dan Fisher, a psychiatrist who's back east in somewhere, Empowerment Initiatives. Years ago, I learned from him how the pyramid was structured, and it might have been someone before him, but so the consumers and the peers were down here, and the pyramid goes up like this, of course, and the power is up here, and everything rolled down to the consumers. And I remember Dan saying that this pyramid needs to be inverted so that we're up here and the power goes down to what used to be the top. And it was a great analogy for me. I wrote this because I knew this was going to be happening. And I wrote, there is love here. And it's like, that's why we're here. And when I say nothing can make me feel better than I do right here, right now in this room with my brothers and sisters, it's because of the fact that we're family. And we're all here for a reason. We're all here because we know we have to make a difference in other people's lives, and by doing so, it's going to make a difference in our own lives. And there's no other choice. We have to do what we're doing. If we don't do what we're doing, we're not going to continue to heal. And this is healing. I got a couple more things, but before I get to these last things, how are we doing on time, okay? Everybody's still awake, I'm impressed. Wait, there's a person sleeping. No. Okay, did everybody get a fortune cookie? Yeah. No. Okay, I want you to open your fortune cookies.
Oh, you keep walking all over the place.
Don't try to reward this. Don't try to record this.
Well,
there's a lot of editing to do with this. Though.
Oh yeah.
I'm moving around now.
Oh my God.
Well, no, we're gonna. Has everybody read your fortune cookies? Okay. If there's anything in your fortune that has anything to do with this event, with one another, or with Pure Apocalypse, or this presentation, raise your hand. Oh my God. Are we connected or what?
No, it says my income will increase. Hey, my income will increase.
Do we want to have questions and answers or comments or something?
You win the 500?
No, we can't. But I thought of this all by myself, right, by the way, and I thought it was pretty funny. You guys might not think it's funny, but yourself up. Read my apocalypse. Read my apocalypse. I love you all. And that's my wish for all of you. Kisses and hugs to everybody. Thank you very much. Thank you. What a blessing.
Do you want to do questions and answers?
Yeah, do you want, does any?
Back of my head, really? Really?
If anyone has any questions or comments for Dora.
Bear does, my son. I saw that hand.
Core, oh, you got it. With your work from DDA, can you explain a little bit more about the expansion of DDA and where it's at today?
Nice.
Yeah, we started in, I was working with people that lived in a place called Redwood Manor, and a couple of people that I was working with happened to have a diagnosis of schizophrenia, paranoid schizophrenia. They loved to go to AA, and they happened to be pretty disruptive, harmless, but if you didn't understand some of the symptoms and voices and, you know, what happens when a person's taking Haldol, as Ruben was, and it just looked kind of odd. Unfortunately, he had muscular rigidity and EPS and things like that. I was asked not to bring them back to AA, but they love to go to 12-step meetings. So really, on a whim, I started Dual Diagnosis Anonymous. The first meeting was in Fontana, California on February the 1st, 1996, at the First Presbyterian Church, and I got to chair that meeting. And DDA has only been organized since I left my position managing a prison program called Bridgepoint at CRCI. Go former inmates. Go Iron Tribe. Right on. And since 2005, DDA has spread to virtually every state in this country. And what really trips me out, besides this, is that I got an email from the Czech Republic in Prague and sent all the materials. So a couple of women in the Czech Republic started DDA there. So as it turns out, DDA continues to spread. It's in Ireland and England and Australia and Canada and the Czech Republic, and I don't even know where it is. And I can tell you this, and it's not always easy to do. The key is to keep Corbett out of the way and allow whatever the divine presence is overshadowing the fellowship of Dual Diagnosis Anonymous to do its work, and things like this happen. And it's not always so easy to keep little Corbett out of the way. Me. Right? So thank you, Vera.
What is water?
What is water? Is this a riddle? Did you know that I use the water in your glass to clean my fingers? And then I thought I was a priest. Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Just like we got all the spots, yeah.
Period of time. In other words, I didn't really hear the story of the grave, but I heard your story, you know, working in California and coming back up. So I just got another picture of you tonight, and I just want to thank you for sharing and for being here.
Thank you.
All right, excuse me. Hey, Corbin, I don't even like it. I'm already.
Something's happening. There's something growing in here.
I'm already loud as it is.
Okay.
I'm sure everybody can hear me. But, you know, I want to thank you for bringing DDA to us down in Medford. You know, we facilitated a DDA meeting there at the VA in White City, Oregon, which is down in Jackson County. You know, at our VA, there it's and some of you have heard me say this before, it's the largest drug and alcohol treatment facility in the world that the VA operates.
Wow.
It's over 500-man bed. Now, of course, when it comes to meeting night, we have quite a few hundred that are cured, but you know, it's good to have the option because, you know, we have vets that suffer from PTSD, suffer from depression, suffer from different traumas, whether it's MST or PTSD. And so having DDA available, it gets rid of that stigma. And I heard it said that, you know, I've got vets that go, people that go to an AA meeting and they want to talk about their medications. Or go to an NA meeting and want to talk about what alcohol is doing to them. And sometimes the old timers, they get a little touchy. And sometimes the newcomers don't understand. There's a mixed message there. But what we do there and having DDA available is that, you know what, if a veteran is suffering from PTSD or whatever it may be, or just having a bad day, because DDA is there, we can talk about it. And there's no shame, there's no guilt. There's none of that involved, and they're willing to share. You know, and on the average, we maintain, you know, 15 to 18 members that come to our meeting every Tuesday night, and it is a good thing. And then, but by the time they leave, everybody's better, and we can hug, and we can talk, and we can discuss our challenges. You know, not only man to man, but back to back. And so, Corbin, I want to thank you.
Rod. I think there's something wrong with this mic.
Something's wrong with
And also with you.
Also with you.
I just wanted to say that without DDA, my life wouldn't be the way it is today. I actually have gone into an AA meeting and been told not to talk about my medications or the fact that they help me keep myself clean and sober or all together mentally. And without DDA, I would have nowhere to go with that.
Hi.
I haven't heard it yet. Let me whisper.
Yeah. What is it that we haven't heard yet? The title of my presentation, To Live Without Hope is to Cease to Live. And I am careful and hopeful that my story is a reflection of the motto, and as the founder of DDA in 1986, what did I say, 96 before, by the way? It started in 1986, and so I got a little prayer booklet from a woman who was dying from a brain tumor, but she was a hero for me. Her name was Pat, all the way to the end, and in this little booklet she gave me was this quote in June by Fyodor Dostoevsky, to live without hope is to cease to live, and what a blessing and an honor for me to adopt that as the motto for DDA. Thank you for reminding me of why I was here, because I know that I would have forgotten.
Look at him. He's just high. You don't care.
I just wanted to say thank you for bringing up about the no secret keeping, or that you don't keep secrets, or try not to. And I forgot what you said, something about anonymity or something. But I've been really struggling when I go to AA because they always say at the end of the meet, or at the beginning or the end, something about what happens here stays here. And every time I hear that, it just hits my heart, you know, it hurts me. And that's kind of an eye-opener, you saying that up there, you know, and I need to be around more people like that believe that. And because me, I went through a while where I just went to AA meeting after AA meeting, and I wouldn't say anything. When I left the meeting, I was just pretty much speechless, like scared to say anything that I learned in the meeting. And that's kind of a bad way to live, because it's supposed to be where you recover and get better and you're supposed to leave there and learn things and tell people, hey, I learned something in AA, you know, and it helped me, you know, because it's supposed to recover you. It's supposed to help you talk and get better. I think now I think that way, and I just want to say thank you. And DDA, I think, is maybe more like that, but I don't want to, you know, be judgmental. But thank you very much.
Thanks, bro.
Thank you. I just want to say I love DDA. It's a place where I can express myself intellectually without judgment. And even when others don't understand the stroke of genius. So thank you.
This is a DDA love fest. Who would have thought? Yeah, I will say something. It comes up about anonymity and confidentiality. In DDA, we hold in equal regard whether a person wants to be totally anonymous and not disclose they're a member of our fellowship, or they can fully disclose who they are and disclose that they are a member of the DDA fellowship for exactly what you were talking about, so we can get our story out there and we can show people that not only is recovery possible, it will happen if we do the things that we need to do with one another. It's not only possible, it's going to happen.
Hey, Chairman, I just want to take a second to thank you for helping us to reestablish the DDA meetings within the correctional facility in Washington County, the Community Correction Center. We've been making a run at that for a couple of months, and in that first meeting, you were there, you told your story, and there was 25 people in that room from the ages of about 23 to 55. And I saw a lot of light bulbs go on over heads, a lot of eyes open up. I saw people who could take that deep breath and be who they wanted to be for a long time. So I really thank you for that. And also, don't you have a conference coming up?
Thank you, Marlena. Yes, we're going to be, we do have a conference coming up called What is Water? It's a fundraiser for DEA in Washington County. We'll be making sure that people have information about that over the course of the next couple of days. So,
That was too
I just got to tell you one story, and then this is past my bedtime.
Bedtime?
Can I tell you that they got me a suite, and they said because I'm the keynote, I get a suite. And did you know that I've got 2 bathrooms in my room? I'm so confused. I don't know where to go. And so Doyle, you know, Doyle's been clean a long time now, but when I first met Doyle, like, I don't know, 15, 20 years ago, he was doing pretty good. He put together a couple of years, clean and sober, and he was going to like meetings and calling me on a regular basis, and all of a sudden he disappeared. Now, having been a counselor for some 40 years in the field of dual diagnosis and recovery, you don't want to think the worst, but I always get a little bit concerned when someone who's been doing so well all of a sudden disappears for a few weeks. So finally, after about 3 weeks, because Doyle had just celebrated like 18 months clean and sober, and it was a really big event, and then he disappeared. So a few weeks after his 18-month birthday for recovery, him and his family decided to have a party at his brother-in-law's and a barbecue. So we're all stoked about it. I wasn't able to go, but Doyle, I know, was stoked about it. So that's the last time I saw him, knowing he was going to this party. So lo and behold, about 3 weeks later, he calls finally. I said, Doyle, how you doing, bro? He said, well, I just, I haven't been around. I said, yeah, I know, are you okay? He said, well, I relapsed. And I said, man, I'm so glad you called me. It's all about learning. It's all about being able to have the courage to call somebody if you've had a slip or whatever. I was just so stoked that he called. And I said, I asked him if he had any. What he did, he said, I drank. He said, and he said, my family was asking me if it was okay to have beer at the barbecue. And I thought, sure, it's not going to bother me. I've been sober for 18 months. Well, apparently it did bother him. And he said, I ended up, I hope you don't mind me telling the story, bro. I didn't get permission, but that's okay. He's the assistant director of DDA, so he gives up anonymity and everything. So he goes, you know, I was drinking beers, and after each beer we had a shot of tequila as a chaser. He said, I got so drunk, and I said, dude, you called me, man, and that really matters. I said, do you have any booze in the house? And he said, no, because it's just something you do. Do you have any alcohol? Do you have any drugs? You know, get rid of them. He said, no, I don't have anything in the house. I said, have you been clean since your party 3 weeks ago? He said, yeah, I've been clean. I said, congratulations, bro. I'm proud of you. And he said, and you know what? I took a cab home, too, from the party. That is pretty big. I mean, that's some good stuff. And then it was like, you know, thinking about all the positive reinforcement, I said, bro, not only did you call me, it took you a couple weeks, but that's okay, man. It's all good. I still love you. And you probably saved someone's life by taking a cab home. I mean, you know what happens? That's a #1 cause of death among a lot of people is car crashes related to drinking. And so, and Doyle was, I could tell he was all pumped up because he was getting such positive strokes. He said, yeah, and he said, I'll tell you, I might have been really drunk, but it was a good thing because there was a checkpoint on the way to my house, and they just let the cab right on through. I said, dude, I'm so proud of you. He said, yeah, and I got up in the morning, I looked out my driveway, I saw that cab, I don't even know where I got it. I never Love you guys, thank you.
My role at MHAO, that love, peace, and blessings has meant a lot to me. If you guys don't know Corbett too well, you hear from him a lot. Love, peace, and blessings, and it has meant a lot for me. So thank you,
Thank you, Amy.
and thank you all for coming, and we will see everybody again tomorrow.